Danielle, go-to-market at Brainfish. With me is Daniel Kimber, our CEO and co-founder. He has been inside the knowledge infrastructure of hundreds of AI deployments, and so he's seen the 95% and he's seen that 5%, and that's an MIT stat. Okay, the MIT stat is there is 95% of an enterprise AI pilot that are just not returning there's zero measurable ROI. So, what does that even mean? Okay, that's something that we're going to talk about today. And we pulled together three teams, three customers of ours that are in that 5% that are returning ROI. And so, we're going to walk through what they actually built, what they changed, and how you can do the same. So, with that said, let's get into it. So this first one, we decided to talk about a Cyber SaaS case study. They have a very technical audience. These are MSPs, IT partners, the types of customers who will absolutely catch a wrong answer. So, Daniel, will you please walk us through the before state? What was the breaking point that made them call you?
Yeah, so this is a really interesting business. They had about 5,000 tickets a month when they came to us, all hyper technical. They have like a MSP and like IT audience, like Danny said, and they don't tolerate vague or wrong answers. So it's a very high risk business. So like they help businesses basically protect themselves against cyber attacks. So they had a huge amount of concern with implementing anything with AI. So one of the other challenges that they had as well was that the knowledge was extremely scattered. They had Zendesk articles, they had Slack threads. There's a lot of tribal memory amongst the support org because they basically have support engineers that are very, very technical. So they'd already tried Zendesk AI. They'd also had a look at Intercom Fin. They couldn't really hit the accuracy that they needed for the audience. They also struggled with getting personalization around types of problems. So for like this really like sort of complex set of issues that these IT users have, you get very granular on the types of issues as well. So it made it very difficult for them to find the right partner, but one of the key things that they were looking at was how they could use Claude to start to bucket some of their tickets into themes and try and automate some of the low-hanging fruit. They were sort of integrating like Zendesk, and they were just pulling like spreadsheets of Zendesk data into Claude and trying to figure out how can we automate some of these things and make it easier. So that helped them to sort of frame up a little bit of what they were looking for when they were starting to solve for AI support. But it was quite a challenging thing for them to figure out as well. One of the other challenges they had was that they were starting to really scale their business. So they're growing about 50% year on year. And their trajectory for next year is that they're going to have to scale their headcount for support about 50% as well. So that's going to be really a big challenge for them and something they don't really want to do. They've got a really tight-knit team, and they're very keen to sort of scale the team to be able to solve for more problems as opposed to having to go and build out a whole bunch of new team members as well. So one of the things they really wanted to focus on was how they could use AI to automate some of that low-hanging fruit, but also making sure that it gave the team a lot more leverage.
Right. So they came to you, you came in. What did you actually connect and what did you have to leave alone? Because cyber teams don't really love that rip and replace. I mean, I don't think a lot of people do. So what actually happened and what did you build with them?
Yeah, so they use Zendesk for ticketing. We left Zendesk in place, and we integrate very like well with Zendesk. So one of the things that we did is we kept Zendesk there. We helped them to leverage their Slack interface a lot better, and so we'll talk through sort of how we did that as well. But those two things were quite non-negotiable for them. They live in Zendesk, they live in Slack. They've invested a lot of time in both those platforms, and so what we were looking at is like how do we really help them in those products. So that what they did is they added Brainfish as a knowledge layer within those platforms so that both the customers can get answers when they submit tickets to Zendesk or when they sort of send an email, they open a live chat with Zendesk. Brainfish is there replying to that user with high quality information that's relevant to that particular customer. And then on Slack, we actually built a way for them to escalate issues from Zendesk so that if a customer has an issue that can't be solved with AI by default, Brainfish actually escalates it into their Slack channel for their team to then get and jump on. So there might be some more critical issues where the team are in Slack, they're looking at some of those issues and they can jump straight in from there, which has been really helpful for them too. One of the other key issues that they struggled with was and making sure that there was guardrails around compliance. So making sure that when users are asking about particular regulations and particular challenges with cybersecurity, we had to put in a lot of different guardrails to make sure that we're not returning PII data. We're not sort of giving them guidance on things that could be quite high risk for them. And so we put a lot of work into making sure that the guardrails are in place for them as well. And they didn't really have to replace anything. They basically just were able to leverage the tools that they had to deliver on AI automation through those platforms as well. So that was that was pretty powerful too.
Yeah, and I think this goes back to the MIT stat where some companies aren't delivering that ROI. We didn't necessarily rip and replace anything. We built the knowledge layer on top of those initial investments. And these initial investments are expensive. Zendesk is expensive. Slack is expensive. If these tools aren't talking to each other and they're just operating in silos, they're not going to be able to prove ROI. So we implemented Brainfish and now their tools are talking to each other and now they're able to deliver answers to customers and they're just more efficient and now they're able to prove ROI. Am I wrong here?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So like the Zendesk knowledge was only really telling some of the story, and challenge for them was actually trying to give the AI agents they were looking at building the right context. So with delivering high quality answers for these types of users, you really need to have the right context, and Brainfish really does that very specially. So we help them to build a lot more volume of knowledge, but also builds a specialist knowledge for these types of use cases that they have as well. So that when we are applying through Zendesk, we have lots of different sources of material to give them a very, very specific response.
Amazing. So with all of this is a lot. What actually changed for the business outcome wise and results wise?
Yeah, so from a results perspective, so there's a few metrics on here, but they've got a plethora of metrics that we've been able to drive for them. So from an outcome perspective, we focused on ticket deflection for them. That was what they came to us trying to solve. And so we've been able to automate about 80% of the inbound chats that they get within their product. And so that's been a really powerful metric for us to drive. The other key things that we've been able to do is help them to reduce that headcount plan as well. So for next year, like I said, they were going to grow the team about 50%. So the fact that they now have told us they're not going to do that has been really powerful. And the other thing is that we're able to give customers a response within 2 seconds. So like on average, we generate answers in about sort of 2 to 3 seconds. Can change depending on the complexity, but for an end user, that's been a really powerful metric for us. So it gives, especially in cyber, that speed of response is really critical. If you're having an incident or you're having someone like actively trying to sort of attack you from a cybersecurity perspective, being able to give them very specific, accurate help that can enable them to defend against it is very important. So that's been a really good one. And it also has meant that we can help them to really drive 24/7 self-serve coverage. So they have a team in a bunch of different countries, but generally their main operating hours are within US time zones. So for their customers that are in Europe and in APAC, they sort of have less coverage there. So our ability to sort of fill in the gaps for their team has been a really important one for them too.
So I think this self-serve coverage and context portion of it is really important. So I want to ask a question here. What do you think the agent can flat out do now, or there's one thing that was like harder than expected? So I guess my question is, what were they doing before and that was much harder for them to do that they can now do and it's much easier for them, I guess, context wise. So when an escalation comes through, they're getting context that they weren't getting before. So now their workflow is so much easier. And how does that change their day to day?
Yeah, so there's kind of like three different ways we look at deploying AI agents. We have knowledge-based responses, we have workflow-based responses, and then we have escalations. So with this particular business, we started with deploying a knowledge-based response strategy so that we can get them that low-hanging fruit solved. And so that's going to alleviate initially some team load, right? And so what we were able to do is to deploy that and automate about 30 to 40% of their initial volume. Then what we've now started doing is moving to automation-based responses where, depending on the type of issue, we're able to triage it, actually integrate with backend systems that they have to then give the customer something very specific as a response through integrations. And that's allowed us to really push up to that 80% mark, where we're starting to automate a vast majority of the types of issues that they're getting through. But then to your point, the last piece is really around context in escalation. So for the last like sort of 20, 30% of issues that are coming through to their team, part of the challenge is also how do you get your team that context of like what is the user trying to solve? How do we make sure the agent has all the right information? So what Brainfish is doing across each channel is if the user comes to us with a problem, if there isn't enough information, first of all, we go back to them and clarify like the problem, make sure we gather all the right context. But then when it actually gets raised into Zendesk, we provide a human agent with a summary of exactly the issues that they're having, what the likely solve is based on our understanding of their backend systems, and help them to shortcut the process to resolution. So we're helping them to sort of really drive towards a faster resolution time for the escalations. But that one's probably still an evolving one for us that we're excited about.
Awesome. Okay, so now moving on to our second case study, we have a legal tech company that we work with, and this one is like quadruple tiered, right? So they had four products, they had 256 combinations, one knowledge base, and all their answers were talking to everybody, delivering the same answer to all their users. So why don't you walk me through a little bit of this one and the before product of when they came to you?
Yeah, this one's a really a fun one. I like this one a lot. We've had this customer for a fair few years now. It's a legal tech business. They have a lot of product complexity, and so basically because they're serving lawyers, lawyers have like very different jobs depending on what type of law they practice. So their product is a generalist solution, but it has to serve all these different types of users. And their documentation as a result is like generalist, but even within that, like you said, they have four products. Those products, it's like 3 to 4 pricing tiers per product. So there's actually like if you combine the different products, it can be like 200 plus different combinations of like pricing, packaging, and product, which makes it very difficult for the user to get the right help because often the knowledge that they have that other AI agents might leverage. It doesn't really understand the context of that user and can't really personalize around what they're actually paying for. So one of the things we really worked on them with was how do we actually break that out into multiple different sort of sub knowledge bases. And so one of the things that's unique with Brainfish is that we can actually have a generalist knowledge base, but then we can have sub knowledge bases for different types of products, plans, regions, cohorts. And so we did a bunch of work with them to do that, which enables us to personalize, but without even having to know much about the user. You don't have to know PII data. You don't have to know really what they've been doing in the product, but we do know what products they do have, what plans they have, what country they might be in, and that makes it a lot easier for us to personalize. And historically, before AI tooling, it was very difficult to manage a knowledge base. So the fact that we're now managing sort of, I think we're managing about 12 different sort of knowledge sets for them and helping their team to do that using AI, I think that's been a really powerful enabler for them. And so that's been a really key reason why they've been able to deliver some really great results with us. So the other challenge they had is that they've got teams across APAC and US. So being able to sort of actually deliver the right knowledge around the clock has been another key challenge for them too.
Yeah, so I mean, the core issue was that the business was too complex for generic issues and they needed the knowledge to stay centralized, but they needed personalized knowledge. So I think going into it, understanding a little bit more about what you guys built together and the plan that you came up with would be great to kind of walk through as well.
Yeah, so like we had this idea with them of like first of all we need to actually get all of their different knowledge sets into one place. So like the previous example, what we find with a lot of customers is that you have like a basic customer knowledge base that's probably in like a legacy tool like a Zendesk or a Salesforce. And that's part one, and that's kind of what you give to customers. You might also then have like a community or a learning center or a university. What we then find is that there's all this ancillary knowledge and like operational knowledge that's in Slack, it's in call recordings, it's in tickets. And so, first of all, we have to get all of that type of knowledge in one place as well, because that provides a lot of like filler info, and that helps us to really actually build out the knowledge to be accurate and a real picture of the product. Another one that we did with this customer is we actually use their session recordings of their customers to learn from how people use their product and build knowledge based on that as well. So we're able to build really interesting, like comprehensive knowledge to start with. And so we help them build a much more comprehensive knowledge base to start with. But then we had to go into the account level and start looking at how do we personalize the knowledge and build basically per plan specialist information, per pricing group specialist information, and also per region, because obviously law in the US is very different to law in Australia, and per state in the US it's also very different. Same in Australia and in APAC. So one of the key things we were doing is looking at how do we build specialist knowledge for each of those types of cohorts of users so that when we're giving them help, we're doing it based on exactly who they are and what types of problems they're trying to solve, and reduce like a bunch of manual work that human agents were doing, trying to actually figure that information out as well. So those are kind of the key things that we had to really, really do for them to get it to work.
Awesome. I would, I think it might be good to visualize it a little bit if you want to walk through this next slide and kind of visualize it for us a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. So obviously I'm talking about a lot of different things. So the first piece is really how do we get all of the right information about what your product does, right? So the third-party data might be your existing knowledge. So that could be like the things in the bottom left here on this diagram. Then we might also have other files like PDFs and documents about what the product does. But we can also use like videos, app recordings, all types of different third-party data. So Slack messages. Then we feed it all into what we call our knowledge intelligence layer. And that allows us to basically start to generate a lot of like source of truth knowledge based on all these different sources. So we might have like five different sources that say slightly different things about what the product does. We need to basically delineate between them and use things like app recordings, which can tell us what's actually in the product. And then we can use that to update this source of truth. So that's sort of step one. Then the knowledge layer that you see here allows us to then build these segmented knowledge bases for different plans, prices, user types, different products, so we can start to separate them out. And then for these types, for this like this customer in particular, this legal tech customer, we then can distribute it into a AI support agent, into their app, into their help center. We also have API for them, so using email-based answers through Zendesk. So when someone sends them an email, we can automatically reply to it using our agents. And we've also started working on a customer success agent for them to help them actually get some account expertise through Slack as well. So those have been sort of the two main ones. So that's kind of how it all flows together. It's like I said, it's quite a sophisticated way for us to understand the product, but also like how it breaks into those different types of users and user groups.
Okay. Awesome. I think that was very helpful to understand. And then I think going forward, walking us through a little bit of the statistics that came out of what changed once we implemented and worked with them on personalizing that knowledge base and how things changed on their end, which are very good published numbers on their website. So, why don't you walk us through a little bit about this, and how it worked?
Yeah, so the first thing we were tracking, we have been tracking with them for a long time, is how do we reduce their total inbound ticket volume? And so we were looking at how we did that programmatically. So we started, like I said, with like a more generalist solution in the year one, and then we started to get really personal, which helped us to drive up that ticket reduction number to now about 74% of their volume being automated, which has been a really powerful statistic for them. And it's allowed their customer support team to actually go and focus on customer marketing initiatives and customer success initiatives. So some of their support team members actually helped renew a few customers that were churn risks because they had a quite intimate knowledge of the products, but also they were able to run some pop-up marketing events. Like they put a billboard out in front of a customer and helped to go and do some like field marketing as a result of having some extra time back from being having that work automated. So that was a really interesting one for us. I really like this case study because of that. The other thing that was really important for them, and this is important for a lot of our customers, is making sure that when you're using AI agents, you're not just using them to stop talking to customers, but actually improve their experience. Like you're not trying to stop talking to customers at the end of the day. You're trying to make it easier for the customers to understand how to use your product, get help, get the best out of it. And so what we were actually able to track is an NPS lift. So when they came to us, they were really struggling with NPS because their product is very complex. Users were getting stuck a lot of the time. They kept reaching out to them. And so because we're now making it so much easier for those users to get that help contextually, we've actually seen a 37-point lift on their NPS over the last year.
Huge lift too. That's a very giant lift.
A huge lift, yeah. And we do benchmark accuracy testing with them as well, where we basically do like we go back and audit a lot of the answers that users are getting and the resolutions that they're getting. And they've been able to validate that we're giving them about 98 to 98% accuracy on average because they've been able to basically sense check it with the team. So they're really excited about that. That makes a big difference to their customers who are lawyers, highly sort of knowledgeable and very intelligent people, giving them very accurate, useful answers that are direct and to the point.
Yeah. And I want to bring it back again to the 95% that aren't delivering ROI right now. If you're able to give your customers at least 98% accurate answers with your 24/7 support, that is a pretty good ROI number right there in itself. And that's why these companies are in that 5%. And so I think it just goes like full circle as to why it just grounded in that product knowledge and the accuracy of being able to provide your customers with that type of accuracy in those answers instantly.
Yeah, and I think also the other one on this, like, which I think I really find interesting, is a lot of people ask, like, well, if you automate support, what then? And what we've done with this customer has been we've not just helped them automate like some of their support volume, we've helped them to then turn their support team into proactive, like revenue driving, customer like focused team members. And so they're actually really enjoying coming to work every day. They're getting excitement out of talking to customers a lot of the time, and being able to do field marketing is like a really cool thing for them to be doing. So it's something that we've been really excited about because we've helped them to sort of really focus on being growth drivers, not just sort of there supporting the team.
Yeah, and absolutely with AI right now, that's where support is should be headed and is headed. And so turning your support team from reactive to proactive and turning them into a revenue generating team is huge. So agreed. Anyways, this was fantastic. Let's move on to the next one, in the sake of time. This next one and last case study that we will be focusing on before we head into Q&A is the public sector, a government customer that we have. Everything was tracked on paper. And can you just imagine how painful that is when everything is tracked on paper? It's a US city government. They had about 600 staff, multilingual workforce. Their only knowledge was accessible through HR. Nobody else had access to that. So maybe walk me through this a little bit and we can go into what we started to implement.
Yeah. So, like you said, they were writing like standard operating procedures for the entire city by hand on paper, which is like not a very scalable way to be doing things, but it's the best that they could do at the time. And they had a lot of the reason why is because a lot of the procedures they had were from like predated the internet. They also had things that were like from like 10, 20 years ago. So they had a whole range of different process documents, and they were sort of in the process of trying to move them online as well. But they had a bunch of different tools like an LMS system that they were using, but it's challenging to sort of help lots of multilingual users get the best out of that knowledge when it's only written, like it's handwritten, it's in English. So there were some really key issues they were struggling with beyond just actually managing the knowledge. It's also like actually how do you give team members that speak different languages the right type of help as well, and enable them properly. So we did some really interesting things both on the language side, but also actually getting all of their knowledge properly ingested into one platform.
Absolutely. So I think then going into it, they implemented some really cool stuff, and I'm sure this was brand new to them. They've never seen anything like this before because they were doing things very traditionally. Um, Maybe talk me through what they replaced, what they kept, and how it's changed things for them.
Yeah, so they used a really interesting functionality that we launched, which is a video upload functionality. So they were able to basically take videos of them performing procedures within each department. So, like the IT department, their procurement department, their HR department, their parks department, each of them would basically go through and record themselves doing some of the processes. And then what we can do is then turn that into structured SOP documents that they can then use and recycle. And then for their city workers, we then deployed an AI chat experience for their city workers to ask questions and get resolutions and instructions in English, in Spanish, in Haitian Creole. And so they were really excited about that. Now, the Haitian Creole is a little bit of an edge case language for us. And so it's like not, I would say 100% perfect, but it was enough for them to basically be able to do real-time translation. And the Haitian speakers were able to get enough information to sort of understand it. So I think that's ultimately it. The Spanish one is like hyper accurate, so we're really excited about that one as well because a vast majority of their workforce speak Spanish. They have a lot of sort of citizens that also speak Spanish as well. So those were quite interesting for them, not just to be able to put all of the knowledge into this singular system and do it in a very easy format where they were able to just record themselves doing this process, turn that into knowledge that they can then use, but then also giving the users that help in their native language. And we also actually deployed it in our new Microsoft Teams launch that we've just done yesterday. We sort of had them on a pre-launch beta for that. So now their internal organization is able to get these answers in their native language within Microsoft Teams. So they don't actually have to go into any other tool to get that response. So they can be anywhere and get that help.
Awesome. And I think writing everything by hand, and that takes not only like hours but days. Being able to upload a video and get that SOP article within like less than a minute has got to save them like days, hours, time. Like I wonder how much time that is saving them just being able to do that feature alone, right? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's really quite an interesting one, and it's something that we thought was quite a cool challenge. I think the outcomes of this has been also quite interesting. The fact that they've been able to deploy this org wide and help their like every department to build SOPs really easily, so that when they're onboarding new team members, which they're doing on a weekly basis, it's very easy for them to educate them, especially when you've got staff that are on the move. You've got obviously parks workers, you've got folks doing all sorts of different things within the city, county, and the county. So their ability to sort of do that easily has been very powerful. And then the ability for them to support languages was a game changer. I remember seeing us do some Creole demos for them, as well as in Spanish, and they were like almost jumped out of their seat. It was super exciting for them to see that they could write in English, which is what most of the team was speaking, but then deliver answers to their citizens and to their workers in their native languages.
That's awesome. And I know we touched on it a little bit before, but they only had their HR team having access to their knowledge base before. So now the city went from no searchable knowledge at all to having like almost all, like half 300 of their staff being able to ask a question in Teams or their help center and just get an instant answer in their native language. That has to be the biggest game changer for them ever.
Yeah, it's massive. So really interesting use case, and so especially for such a critical part of their community. It's great for them to actually have the right knowledge now available to everyone.
Amazing. So I think moving forward and looking at all three of these together, they're all very different. different use cases. They all have very different setups with Brainfish, but they all have like one thing in common, and they didn't just implement AI. They didn't just use ChatGPT, Claude. They are enabling an AI to deliver the right context from a continuous knowledge layer. So, do you want to kind of just walk me through what these all three have in common and why they are in that 5%?
Yeah, I think with all three, like ultimately the main challenge with delivering well on all three use cases is context, is understanding the context of the product, but also understanding the context of the customer and being able to do both, connect both well, helps you to actually deliver a good AI experience that will deliver on the outcome you want. And so that's something that we've been really focused on with a lot of our customers is how do we help you to build the right context and deliver it to the right person as they need it. And so those things are really quite critical.
Absolutely. I think now is a perfect time to get into Q&A. So let me ask the first question and kick it off. I believe it is a question about our newest MCP. Somebody asked if I already have Claude running across my team connected to Notion and a few of our docs, what does plugging in your MCP actually change?
Yeah, so if you're plugging in the Brainfish MCP to Claude, it allows you to understand all of your customer like information. So we can really easily analyze like what types of issues you've been having, what types of thematics are coming through. We can do that through Claude, but it also actually helps you to audit your knowledge very quickly. So what we've done with a lot of customers recently with the MCP is help them to audit all of their content very quickly and build a strategy to then fix it in a very programmatic way. So that's been something that we've been really excited about, and it makes it so much easier than a 6 month, 8 month project to go and try and rebuild all of your knowledge. Something that can be done in a matter of days or weeks, depending on like how in depth you want to go.
Perfect. Looks like we have another question. Where do you install the AI agent in on-prem or cloud products?
Yeah, good question. So it's like different depending on on-prem or cloud. So if it's a cloud product, we can install a Brainfish agent within the product as like a chattable experience. Some customers actually have it like natively part of their product so that you can chat with Brainfish and get it to execute tasks for users and help them throughout the experience. We also have ability to integrate with your existing communication channels. So like email and like live chat, WhatsApp, all these types of things as well. And then we offer a help center offering as well. So that's from like a cloud perspective. For on-prem, if you have let's say you have a Gemini deployment or you've got a existing like on-prem setup, as long as you have access to a cloud provider or like which could be your own setup, we can deploy a packaged solution that allows you to manage it yourselves. And it will help you to build all of that knowledge as well as deploy an internal experience. Let's say it's on like Microsoft Teams, for example, and you can actually deploy the agents within Teams so that your team can have that all contained within your existing workspace. So we've done that for some businesses on Azure deployments as well as on Google Cloud deployments where they have their own managed instances and they want us to do that. Generally on-prem though, obviously we're sort of doing that mainly for financial services businesses and for government. It's very like uniquely scoped for those types of companies.
Perfect. We have another question from Willie. He is asking if we have any use cases for the payments industry or customer service areas that cover multiple touch points. Willie, absolutely, yes, we do. And also said, who would be the best person for a discovery call? More about how would this would help. Well, I can answer that a little bit probably on my end. Funny you asked because after this slide, I have a QR code. We're actually doing audits, consultative audits that are non-sales pitches, more how this would help. And so that's going to be something that the team and I are doing within the next month. We'd love to do that with you. I specifically write a lot of our case studies myself, so I'm happy to share that with you as well. Daniel, would you like to share anything on top of that?
Yeah, I think I'll answer the first part of this question as well, which is around like the payments industry and customer service. So we've got a bunch of payments customers actually onboarded a payments infrastructure company about 2 weeks ago. They use us for helping them to build knowledge as they deploy changes to their infrastructure. So through GitHub, we have an integration with their GitHub deployment. It automatically builds knowledge for them, and we support them through a developer documentation help center that uses AI as well as they have like an admin platform. So we sit within that admin platform to help their developers build on their payment infrastructure and help them configure a lot of the endpoints, that kind of thing. We also have more sort of consumer side experiences. So like we've got a investing platform that's a financial services business. We help their users to understand how they can use the product, what the benefits are of it, but we also have very clear guide rails around sort of investing advice and around sort of specific issues where there's regulatory risk for them to be providing those responses. So because we do all of this work around accuracy and around compliance and making sure that we're delivering the right context, it allows us to put in very clear guardrails for these types of businesses. But yeah, would love to sort of talk you through how that works in more detail if you're interested in having a look. Doesn't have to be a sales pitch. It can just be literally us sort of showing you what's worked for our customers on the more regulated side of things and on the customer service side as well. We do a lot there.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more question. This is probably a good one, DK. I'm excited to ask you this one. Um, Give me one outcome your customers got that they literally could not have gotten from a generic AI agent. Be specific.
Okay. So I think one of them was our ability to. So we have a particular customer where they have an enterprise. They have this enterprise customer. It's a Fortune 100 customer, and that customer built a digital adoption team to basically use the product that they had bought. And the customer had also deployed a sales engineer, a customer success manager, and a technical account manager to support that customer. So there was people on both sides of that relationship involved. So what we were able to do is build a specialist AI agent for that particular customer and for their customer. So that meant that like we had agents answering like all of the other types of support issues for the rest of their customers, their sort of large majority. For this particular enterprise customer, they were able to actually deliver a very specific agent that helped them with their complete like sort of custom setup. And that was really interesting because they were actually able to upsell that customer on that service and the fact that their customer doesn't really need to have that digital adoption team managing that product anymore. So that's probably one of the coolest ones I've seen recently where they've been able to actually help their enterprise customer like get a really unique experience.
That was good. Good stuff. Okay, so with the time that we have left, I think we just wanted to touch on again, we talked about it a little bit with Willie's question, but we are doing free context audits for your AI implementation. Doesn't necessarily have to be a context audit. We do a lot of consultations for knowledge and now just around a lot of the AI stuff that we talked about today. So feel free to scan the QR code and put in your information for a discovery call, demo, consultation. The team will be doing these within the next month or so. And we're actually really excited to have these conversations because we haven't done a ton of these before. So, again, this is something that we're going to be doing a little bit more of and going through more case studies and having more webinars with our CEO. But thank you for joining, DK. I hope this was a good time for you. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you guys all on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, Danny.
Thank you. Bye.